Hey Google, turn on my van heater.
Hi Greg, sorry I can't help with that right now. Besides, why don't you shift your lazy ass and go and do it yourself? After all, the van is just in the drive. Okay, so it's raining. Well, boo-hoo, are you a man or a mouse? No, I will not turn on your van heater. What did your last servant die of?
That dipshit's getting too big for a cloud. So Siri, Alexa and Google Home Assistant may not be able to turn on your van remotely, but you can do it with a humble mobile phone by building a text switch, which is what I did. I'm going to show you step by step what I did, just in case it's of any use to you guys out there. And you might be thinking, oh, hey, why didn't you just shift your lazy ass and get out and press the on button? Well, of course, everyone's got different use cases, and some guys use these as their daily driver, their works vans, and wouldn't it be great while they're rushing around getting their breakfast just to send a text, so when they get into the van it's all nice and toasty and defrosted, good to go. For me it's a little bit different. I'm in a camper van, and I do a lot of music festivals, some of my entry wristbands there, and each end of the season gets a little bit chilly, so yeah, when you're waiting for the final act to do its encore, send a text, and when you get back to the van at the end, nice and warm, carry on the festivities, and why not, because I'm not driving, am I? So anyway, it's not rocket science. If you've managed to install a diesel heater, you've probably got enough skill to do this, except you will need to do a little bit of soldering, and it doesn't have to be brilliant, and you'll see from my video that I'm doing now, my soldering ain't great, but it needs to be good enough so you get a good a contact without a dry joint. And if you just want to turn it on remotely, you'll need to do 2 bits of soldering, 2 tags. If you want to turn it off remotely as well, depending on the controller, you may need to do 4, or you may need to do 2. That will become clear as we go through this. So now I need to give a shout out to Hank, one of the admin guys here, because he did it before me and pointed me in the direction of the GSM module that I'm going to be using to build this switch, and I'll show you later on. And he himself was given some help by a guy called Steve Murphy, I think it was. So yeah, the community coming together, helping each other out. So that's fantastic. In addition, Hank sent me the pictures of his work, because I hacked a LCD controller, the traditional black type, by going into the remote of that, not into the controller itself. Henk had the old-fashioned rotary controller. There's no remote on that, so he had to go direct into the back of that, and then he upgraded to the one with the temperature dial on the front, and went direct into the back of that as well. So between the 3, hopefully it'll give you a good range of what can be done, because of whatever controllers out there, it's the same sort of principle. Okay, so I think that's enough of the waffle. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's have a look at these GSM modules. Okay, so that's mine. The company's called GSM-UK, a British company, and comes with very good instructions you download from their website. And thanks to Henk for putting me onto these people. That there, as I said, is a single channel one, and you can get a dual channel one. In fact, you can get a quad channel one as well. That one is 20 quid. If you want it already mounted in a case, it's another 3 quid. I chose not to do that because I've got to also mount up the guts of the remote control, because I'm not going straight into a controller, and we'll look at that later. But that's the kit. So let's have a quick look around then. So there's where you put the power in, either 12 volts or 24, and it's non-polarized, so it doesn't matter which way is plus or minus on that one. That there is the relay output, so that's effectively a switch. It's going to turn things on and off. And then, just see it poking up, is the SIM card. I've chosen to use the 02123 contract because in fact it's not a contract, it's a pay-as-you-go, and there's no minimum spend each month. You only pay for the text. It's 2p I think a text. So you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, you're sending a text to that, why have you got any charge at all? Well, you can program these modules to talk back, so when you send a text to it, it sends a text back saying, yep, message understood, so you know that the heater's going to be fired up, and I'm going to program mine up to do that. So that's a quick tour, and we'll look at programming that up later on. So, time to get soldering, time to do that hack, and I'm going to start off by hacking into the remote to drive the LCD controller. And then we'll look at the rotaries after that. So the first one of these I bought wouldn't pair, and others on the site have found that. The one I did pair I got from eBay. I think it's about £4. Here is who I got it from. And it had a sticker on the back saying tested 433 megahertz, which is the common frequency for remote controls. Okay, there's the sticker. So the button we need to tap into is the unlock button here, because that's the one that obviously fires up the machine. And I'm going to now just take this apart so we can have a look in the guts of it. Okay, now I must remember which button I got to tag onto. It's the unlock button, which is the one that fires it up. So I've got to be careful not to forget which one, because I'm likely to do that. So what I'll do is I'll take the back off, remove the silver buttons and the plastic cover to reveal the micro switches. And it's that one there, so I'm going to mark it up straight away. Put a mark on the switch so I know which one I'm playing with now. Tease out the battery, and then very gently let's see if we can get that PCB board out. It looks like it's just held in with clips, so it should be gently be able to pop it out and have a look at it. Alright, so there's the switch we've got to tap into, and there's two solder points each side of it, and I'll zoom in on that now to get you a close-up view. So there's the two terminals we need to solder onto. At first I thought they were just retaining clips, but they are the actual terminals for the switch. The one on the right there, not so bad as exposed. The one on the left is actually quite tricky because it's confined space, so you've got the other switch right next door to it. So a little bit of a steady hand doing this one, I think. Okay, I'm going to start off with a bit of a bodge. I'm going to try and enlarge the size of those solder terminals so before I get a wire on there. Fortunately, the chips are at the other end of the board, the ones that I think will get damaged. I think there's some sort of fuse thing down at this end, but I just want to enlarge the size of those contact areas before I get the wire on it. Now, no doubt there's one or two smart Alecs out there just desperate to sort of comment on my soldering skills. No need to do that. But if you want to send in an actual video of you doing it with this actual remote control, then great, add that to the comments. But yeah, here we go. I think we're almost done. Enlarge those terminals, ready for the wire. So putting those wires on now, and later on I'm going to add two more wires onto the battery terminals to get the supply in, but I'm going to just test it with the battery to start with. Right, yeah, looks good. So connecting those two wires now to multimeter. I just want to make sure that switch is still good. Press it down, little micro switch there, the one I marked up, and yep, good, got continuity. Excellent, excellent. So right, in the van then, there's the LCD controller on the right, the remote on the left. Let's touch those two wires together, and oh, the blue LEDs come up, and yep, the LCD controller is fired up. Rock and roll, we're in business. I think we've hacked that remote successfully. Okay, so let's look what Henk done with the rotary controller. In fact, there's two. First one Henk had was the traditional black rotary one, as shown here. Now Henk's use case required him to be able to turn off as well as on, and so he needed a dual channel. There's no remote on these, so you're hacking directly into the back of the controller itself. And so you take the back off, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so this is it with the back taken off and the PCB exposed. The on button's the one on the left there, the one on the right is the off button, and you can see the location of the terminals that you've got to solder onto. More space to get at on this one, a bit easier to get to, I should imagine. But of course, if like me, you just need an on only and you've got a single GSM module, it would be the left one, which is the on button that you'll be soldering into. So that was the old style, but then Henk upgraded and got the new style with a new heater, which looks like this. Very groovy. It's got the temperature display in the middle. But note, there's a single button on this one, and you press it one short push for on and a hold it longer for off. A bit like the LCD controller, the old style LCD controller. So you need a single channel GSM module to hack into the back of this one, and you're just going to program it differently. You can program a long hold and a short hold, and we'll talk about that when we look at the controllers. So this is what it looks like on the inside.
And I remember reading on Hank's post, actually he found this one a bit easier than the old style one, and you can see he's tagged straight onto the back of the printed circuit there. You only need a single controller, single channel controller, because it's one button. So if you've got this style, take a good look at the picture there, look at the 2 tracks you need to tag onto, and you can solder straight onto the back of that. Now I should have said, if you've got the LCD controller and you're going into the remote like I did, and your use case requires you to be able to turn off remotely as turn on, do exactly what I did on one button, you do the same on the other button. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Okay, so let's look what we've got here. We've got the GSM module and the remote module. And what I've done is I've soldered on to the battery terminals a supply that I can plug into a 12-volt socket in the van. I've then taken a loop off of those 2 terminals, taken it round to put into the supply of the GSM controller. That's polarity independent, doesn't matter which way round you go. But I tell you what's really handy, both that and that is 12 volts. Those little batteries at A27s are 12 volts. So of course then the wires I took off of the the remote control, go into the GSM relay terminals there, and if you had the rotary, that would be the wires you tagged into the back of the rotary controller, goes into there. So now we're all good to go, I think, and what we need to do now is just program up that GSM controller. Okay, time to program up the controller then. Now what I would say is read the instructions, because they're actually very, very clear, and they're in English, not Chinglish. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through those instructions, but only the bits that are relevant to the van heater. You can do a couple of other things with these switches that aren't really relevant. Since I've done that last thing with you, I've packaged up my kit. It's now mounted and it's in its own case, and yep, that's right, it's a Tupperware container. Yes, I know I'm classy, but actually it worked very well for me because I've got the gubbins there, and on the right hand side I've got storage where I can keep the power cable, which will plug in there, and the aerial, which you screw on the top, and a spare SIM, because actually you can put a different SIM in here, so I'm going to keep one for the E network in there just in case the O2 is not available wherever I am. If you mount it permanently in your van, I should have said, obviously you're going to try and put it in a spot where you get signal, but if there's any doubt, the company that you buy these from, they also sell remote aerials that you can permanently fix on your roof and run a cable down. Okay, so that's what I'm using. Right, now when you put the SIM in, get it the right way round. This is what it should look like, and there's a little diagram on the little controller. If you look at it, it shows you that the clipped off corner goes on the right hand side as you're looking down on it. Okay, right, so I think it's now time to power up, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm about to switch on, plug it in. Down here you've got 3 LEDs. One is the power, the middle one is a boot up light. It flashes until it's booted up and then goes out, and that one there, it just flashes when the actual relay is being operated. And in addition, you've got a little red LED on the GSM module there that flashes about once every second while it's trying to find a network, and once it's found a network it will flash about once every 3 seconds. So let's plug it in, see what happens. Okay, so the power light's on, the startup is flashing, that's going at 1 a second. So the main module is good. That light's extinguished, and now, yep, you see this now once every 3 seconds. We should be good to go. Okay, now I'm just going to send a message to the controller so you can see what's going to happen. I'll show you how I do it later. Okay, so I've just sent a text message now, and what will happen is hopefully, there it goes. Okay, you saw that flash. You saw 2 things flash. One is up here. It was to say that the relay had been operated. It operated for about 1 second, and actually, because I've got it wired up to the remote control, you saw my remote control come on. Okay, so that's basically what happens there. Now, how does it operate? Let's look at how we program this.
Okay, so this is the text message that you send to turn your heater on or off. You always send RS, then you put in channel 1. That's the channel number. If you've got 2 buttons, unlike the old style rotary, you might have a 2 there, 1 for on, 2 for off, for example. Then you put in the number of seconds you effectively want to put your finger on that button for, and it's got to be in 2 digits. So if it's a quick push to turn it on, you might say 01. And if you've got a single button controller but you have a long push to turn it off, you might say 04, for example. Easy as that.
Okay, so previously I sent a 1 second one. I'll now send that 4 second text to the controller so you can see what happens. Right, hit send. There you go, that might be the message you send to turn off. Now, one very important thing is it is case sensitive. You must do this in uppercase. If you send the lowercase letters, it will not respond. All right, so if that's what you want to do, easy peasy lemon squeezy, you're now good to go. However, if you want the thing to talk back to you, you have to do a bit of programming. In other words, to send a command saying, yep, message understood. Also, as things stand, if anyone's walking by and they happen to know the number of your controller and they happen to know the commands and they happen to be a little bit malicious, they can actually turn on your heater for you. Highly unlikely, but that is possible. But if you set your phone up as an administrator, it puts in some security because it ties the controller to your phone alone. You can actually program it to do a second phone or a second SIM. Won't look at that today, but if you get that far, it's in the instructions and it's quite easy. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to power down first. And I'm going to zoom in. Okay, now I've zoomed in on these jumpers here. You can see there's a set marked all, and it refers to the manual as on. I don't know why, but it's all on. And it's got a little plastic thing over the top. That's effectively joining the jumpers together. On the other side, you can see 2 exposed jumpers, and they're marked as setup. You can see that all are closed and setup is opened. So to get into administration mode to program this, what you do is you take the jumper off. Okay, you can see it's now off, and you put it onto setup. Now, some of the boards they send out actually have got little micro switches, a lot easier to use, but it's the same principle. Once you've done that, power up, and then you telephone. You phone your control board. You don't text it, you phone it, and it will hang up on you because obviously it's not phone, but it now knows it's in programming mode. Okay, so what you do now is you move this back to all, and the first thing you need to do is to give it your telephone number so it knows who to respond to, and we'll look at that now.
Okay, so to program in your telephone number, you just type in TT, then your full mobile number without any spaces, hit send. Okay, it now knows your number and it can respond to you. Okay, so you can get your controller to talk back to you, so you know that it's received your command to turn the heater on and off. And to switch that mode on, you simply type in capital R, lowercase on for on. Capital R, on for on. If you don't want to do that, if you change your mind because you don't want to pay for the text message, you type in R OFF, R off. Send.
Right then, to the van with my posh bit of Tupperware. This is genuinely the first time I've tried to fire it up, see if it works, so yeah, a moment of truth. Okay, so I've plugged in and I've got a network signal. Let's give it a go. Okay, so we're in the van. I've got the start command RS101 ready in the SMS. Press send, let's see what happens. Boom, we're on. Haha, we've done it. Job's a good one. Yeah, so job is a good one. And as I said right from the very beginning, it's not rocket science. So if you think a text switch may be of use to you, have a go, and hopefully one or two things in this video may have helped you on your journey there. Thanks of course again to Hank for his input and all the admins in this group. I've had a really good experience in this group, got tips and ideas, a lot of support, and it was this group that gave me the confidence to buy the heater in the first place. You know, we have so much more fun than those Russian and German fanboys and girls, don't we? So it just leaves me to do two things. One is to say Happy New Year, and secondly, I need to fire someone. Hey Google.